Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you are doing well. I hope that you are easing in to your fall autumnal cozy season and that it's bringing you some joy. I hope you got something spicy, like a nice pumpkin spice latte, something that has cloves, something that is just really making you feel the spirit of the season, even if we haven't quite cracked the temperature of the season yet. We had a very one of those unexpected warm days after a couple of cool weather days here in New York recently. But what else is going on with me is I did tech for one of my favorite shows at the People's Improv Theater last night. I am now the regular tech for one of the most entertaining shows, Love is Live. I love getting to work with everyone in the group, Mackenzie, Aaron. It is a true joy to get to work with them on a regular basis. And I also, and this is, I want to shout out a very special listener who I know listens to the show regularly, Josh Jaquish. I wanted to say thank you so much for listening to the show. I appreciate your enthusiasm and your support. Mackenzie tells me that you listen regularly, so thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate your support and you checking out my podcast. It really does mean a lot to me because I, like many other folks on the internet who create things, be it music, art, comedy, podcasts, I am independent and I am mostly a solo operation. So to put something out into the world and have people respond to it is really validating, and it's what I want. That's one of the goals. So Josh, thank you very much for listening and for your kind words. I've heard through Mackenzie that you enjoyed the show. So thank you again. And talking about independent creators, my guest on the show today, coming back for his first episode in over 3 years, believe it or not, my friend Aaron Barkstrom is back on the show today. Aaron, I met several years ago. Our old bands played together. My old band Bright Ugly played with his band What Makes Sense. We are both in new bands now, and Aaron is now playing with a very cool. I think you're going to hear us dub the genre of music in the interview, but he plays in a great new band called Suburban Surf Club. It's like they are surf rock meets emo meets shoegaze and jam band. It is very eclectic, excellent rock band, and they have a excellent, cool new EP called Something Higher, which is available everywhere you stream your music. And it has been a while since I chatted with my friend Aaron, and we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and we've been doing a lot of different and new things and having a lot of crazy, fun, new experiences. So naturally, we had to sit down and talk about him for the first time in a while, and we discussed the new EP as well as our summer of concerts, as well as our musical tastes, like differing, like we play very like straightforward, jump up and down, sing along kind of rock music. But then we also both have our other music that we listen to. And we're going to talk a bit about both of some unexpected bands in our listening array over the course of this podcast. So folks, if you enjoyed this, definitely check out Suburban Surf Club's new EP, Something Higher. And, I hope you enjoy this conversation with my buddy, Aaron Barkstrom. Of the concerts I've been to, not just in ones I've played, but like this summer, I've just seen some like crazy, wild bucket list kind of shows. It's been nuts.
Oh man, we got to talk about that then.
Oh, dude. Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, the big one is I saw Green Day 3 different times in 3 different cities.
Wait, you were at the Citi Field one, right?
I was at the Citi Field one, and then I discovered quite happily that Green Day is like one of my wife's favorite bands of all time. And I knew that because she was like, hey, let's go to Paris and see Green Day. And so we saw part of the European dates because she's also a huge fan of the Interrupters, and they opened the European
Interrupters are
League.
So sick. Speaking of them, I've actually seen them since like, oh my god, it must have been like 20 or like mid 2010s.
Uh huh.
And I was so glad to see like they were a part of some of Green Day's. I actually think last time I saw them was them opening up for Green Day, but in 2017.
Oh, sick, sick. I'm so glad they're still doing that. I've seen them. I saw them with Frank Turner. They co-headlined
Cool.
Pier 17, and then they opened for Sum 41 on their last tour. That was a killer show. That was one of the more gnarly like mosh pits I was in. The Sum 41 Interrupter show.
Really?
I lost my Fitbit. It was a whole thing, but it was worth it because I would literally start in like one pit and then get absorbed into another one and then another one erupted. So it was like I was like getting like passed around like three whirlpools of humans.
Yeah, I don't always get the chance to like go to a lot of big shows. It just always happens. I have bad luck about it, and like they happen when I'm out of town or away or something. And but when I like go to these shows, it's just so funny because there's little ecosystems within the pit where you're like, oh, I don't recognize these people. I don't know how I got over here. And then you're like, oh, because I was all the way over there before, like last song.
Yeah, dude, it's really interesting. It's almost like being a fish in the ocean or like a lobster, like you're just observing the different communities. One of the craziest shows I still always bring up is I saw Gogo Bordello at Terminal 5 on New Year's, and I bounced off every wall in that venue.
I just saw a video of that's so funny that you say that. Like of maybe it was 2 days ago, and it was like a TikTok video of like one of the pits at his shows, and I was like, I didn't know. I guess he's what, folk punk technically, something like that. I was like, I didn't know people went this hard for him. Like I know like he's known for having like crazy shows like on stage, but I didn't know the fans were also bonkers.
Yes, they are. They're just like super like crazy passion. It's like sometimes it's like being at like a South American soccer match. It's just like constant chanting, and it's just like an ocean of humans. It's really wild, and I love like going to shows like that, like where there's like kind of built-in community and like the vibe is great. Like punk, I think, is exceptionally unique in this, right? I feel like of course there's always going to be like bad actors, but like the vibes are always good at punk shows I go to. Like
there's and if like it is a bad person, it's like one person who probably just drank too much, and like
right.
the shit'll catch up to them. Like, but yeah, I fucking love punk shows.
Oh, dude, it's like my best times because, and I'm trying to think if there's a comparable one other than like metal or ska. But and the reason I bring that up is because I've got a friend who's really into Fish, the jam band, and he says
we'll
people
have much to talk about. I mean, I'm not a big Fish fan, but I've gotten into jam bands over the past like 4 or 5 years. But
okay.
Is that not one of the most... Sorry, but continue your point, but just such an incredible community.
Well, that's what I've heard, and I love Drew Carey's riff about how great their show at the Sphere was. He does say that some folks that get like really, really up close tend to get a little precious about their like space with their blanket to do all the swaying like 60s kind of stuff. But otherwise it's... Yeah, but otherwise, I imagine my idea of the like jam band community is it's pretty chill, like as a rule.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened. I mean, I listened to the Grateful Dead a little bit like later, in my college times, and then once I graduated, listened to them a little bit, and then 2020 came, and I just got like really immersed in all of that. And what's cool about them, and they're like one of the, I would say, the most well-documented live band of all time. And so there's just, I mean, any show you could really think of, there's an audience record, like somebody brought recording equipment and recorded either from the soundboard or from the crowd. But they've also been able to take a lot of those like tapes, whether it's from the staff that was recording it that day or even some audience tapes, I believe, and they started doing this in the 90s where they'd remaster those and release them as live shows. And so now that we're in the digital streaming age, there are just hundreds of shows that you can listen to. And it's like, think about if I could compare it, like Green Day with Bullet in the Bible, where we're like, wow, like that was a legendary live album. It was so good. And like, imagine that times 100. Like you have 100 bullets in the Bible. It's so cool. So I think that's what like got me into them over the pandemic. But the community was so cool. I got the chance to go to a few like Dead and Co shows. I went to Saratoga. City Field shows were always amazing. Crowd was always so nice. Those shows, it's just speaking of ecosystems, it's like there's people who have known each other for decades, and they saw them, when Jerry Garcia was playing with the Grateful Dead, and then all the projects post Grateful Dead, like they're still around, hanging around, and like they know each other from different cities across the country. It's really like, it's almost like a punk community, I would say, but they are obviously into very different music.
Yes, it's like almost the flip side, because you can't just like scream and yell about the government and your love life all the time. You need to relax a little bit. Same way, like I enjoy a nice Midwest emo every now and then, or I'll break out like Miles Davis kind of blue when I want to vibe a little bit. Because that was and that's the thing I wanted to ask you, is that like I've known you for a few years now, and for playing in like rock bands and like more straightforward kind of punk rocks, writing like kind of more straightforward songs. So to hear that you got really into the Grateful Dead with all of the noodlies and the like extended solos was that initially I was like, that doesn't make sense in my brain. But now I think, because you're very, it gives you nuance, Aaron.
And like I think that was what was missing, was like I've actually gotten really into hardcore over the past few years too. So like I had like the heavier stuff, I had the kind of sing along, pop punk stuff that I wasn't really into pop punk super like that much until again probably after college. As you can tell, I didn't have very broad horizons, until like the streaming area. I think as much as like streaming sucks with, the changing the way that, music and the music business has been, that's a whole nother conversation. But
right.
It has like, we can't, avoid the fact that it's helped a lot of people discover a lot of other, sort of things. And so, I had kind of like these, musical spaces filled. Like I love reggae. I've loved reggae forever. And I just didn't have like something weird, something that's like weird enough. And I think that's kind of where like the Grateful Dead came in, where I could just put on any show and just sit and listen to it, and like that's how I get through my workday very often. So it was cool being able to just find something that for a while I was like, these guys suck so much. Like I like can't get into this music. But I was like, I was listening to like, 3-chord punk music for like decades. And then I was like, all right, well, these guys, there's actually something going on here.
Oh no, totally. Like that, I'm very much to your point. That's to me the great side, as someone who's like constantly looking to find cool new things to listen to. For the longest time, I had no disposable income to say, so it was not practical for me to like go out and buy every single album of a band that I was just kind of curious about. It just wasn't feasible. But my pandemic deep dive was similar to your Grateful Dead deep dive. I dived deep into Iron Maiden for a while because
that's awesome.
Right. Because again, they're one of those bands that like I know everybody talks about. I see the shirts everywhere, but I've never like really listened to the entire catalog aside for the like Run Through the Hills. And also because during the early summers of the pandemic, which is, I think, one of when we first started talking like 3 years ago when you were last on the show, they were always doing like mowing the grass or like running leaf blowers or doing construction in my apartment complex. So I needed something to like drown it out. And I was like, well, okay, classic metal. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, I love Iron Maiden so much. That was like my obsession in shit, what was it? I'd say probably middle school. There was like a good
Hmm.
like 1 to 2 year span where I was just like, I love Iron Maiden. But like to your point, I didn't go out and buy all like the albums. I maybe have like 2 CDs of them. um,
Yeah.
but like because I was like a kid, I didn't have a job, so
Yeah.
um, but yeah, Iron Maiden was so fun, and it was cool because it was like I got into them during a period of them kind of like coming back in they released I forget the name of the album, but they released it was like the Space Odyssey one. Maybe that was what it was called. But that was a
Hmm.
really cool album. I think that was actually my freshman year of high school. But yeah, I remember getting like the CD and I was like, Maiden's back. Like this is so sick. And it's just
Nice.
wild how long their career has gone too, if you look back on
Hmm.
it, and just they've consistently released just awesome music. And they play better than like most bands that are like our age, and they're like, I don't know,
Yeah.
how old are they? 60 now?
Yeah, they're like easily mid to late 60s. They like, when did the first stuff come out? Like early 80s. So we're talking about
Yeah.
like 40 something year career. Now all of those like classic bands like Priest and Maiden and were the gods that we praised.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff is like as old as we are now, which is kind of insane.
Wild. The
Um
oh,
oh, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna ask you, like, when you're like working on songs, do you ever like have a riff that's like, oh, this is kind of like this, and then you just call the song, have like a working title of like the something something song, like when you're before you like actually write the lyrics?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
so we're gonna call
That's like my entire demo process. You have me pinned on that.
it. I do the same.
Right now I have two demos that one's called Shoreline Goths because I was like it's kind of like gothy-ish, and then
Uh-huh.
I have one called Distorted Heaven, which is just literally the name of the guitar patch that I made. Like it's a guitar with distortion and whatever, like Logic Pro's Heaven chorus pedal or whatever. But yeah,
Mm.
it's like, yeah, this is how, if you had like 2 words to describe these songs, this is kind of like what it would sound like.
Hmm. No, one of Skip Lag's songs for the longest time before I finished it was called the My Sundown, the Jimmy Eat World song, because it's
Oh, nice.
because the riff started out like very much like that sort of like really slow, sort of like just kind of chuggy kind of power chord riff, and then it kind of evolved into something else. But yeah, most people in bands that I know start with like, this is the this band
Mhm.
riff, or this is the this band song.
Yeah, I was like, there were some that shit. I'm trying to remember some of the ones that we had from this EP. But yeah, like we take a lot of pride in what we call our demos, cuz most often that's not, obviously what we're going to end up naming them. It's just like a fun placeholder name, and I think
Yeah.
everybody should do that, especially nowadays too when everything's digital. So if I'm gonna
Hmm.
send a file, like I have to save it on my laptop and email it or text it and whatnot. And so got to get a memorable title, even if it's not gonna be the one that we're gonna carry it over into.
Oh no, totally. Speaking of this EP, I listened to it recently, and I would love to kind of ask you about some of like your influences coming into Suburban Surf Clubs, into Suburban Surf Club. Because when I look at the cover of Something Higher here, I can see very much that sort of like 60s psychedelia kind of influences. And I mean this as a compliment, but I am trying to be funny here. When I listen to your band, and you're sort of doing that sort of like shoegazy, but like pop punk kind of
Mhm.
power pop thing, it's very much like emo jam band, and I mean that in the
Yeah.
most complimentary way possible.
Oh, trust me, I've been trying to get the guy. There's a few songs that I was like, there's space for us to jam. I don't know if I'm good at improvising, but
Hmm.
I think we should try it. I think it'd be really fun. But emo jam band, I want to write that down, and I'm gonna steal that idea, and we're gonna make shirts.
You, oh, dude, that would be a great Hard Dies shirt, I think.
It would be, yeah. And also like, yeah, speaking of like the shoegaze part, I think it took me about probably well, we're at a month post release of the EP. It took me about a month to realize like we do have shoegaze elements, and I was
Hmm.
just like, I don't know enough about the genre to even identify it. You know, like I do. I've heard things about it. I've listened to it a little bit, but I was like, we're surf gaze. Like that's what we are. And then like there's like the choruses I would say are probably more like along the lines of something a little bit more poppy. But I was like,
Hmm.
surf gaze. Maybe we move forward with that as our label.
That's pretty good.
I think
I
emo
like that a
jam
lot.
band's better though.
Well, you can do both. Surf jam that's pretty good too. So because I initially thought of and I would love to ask these too. Do you listen to like surf rock or like that stuff from like the 50s, like the Ventures and stuff like that in the like height of the Jazz Master Jaguar era?
I love that you called out the Ventures. Hey Will, give me 1 sec. I realized I actually didn't plug in my laptop.
Oh no,
Let's take a 30-second commercial break because it's plugged
sure, no
in.
problem.
I just didn't turn on the power strip. I don't
Oh
want it
yeah,
to.
no,
Yeah. All right, 1 sec.
no problem.
All right, and we're back.
No,
But
yeah, that's an important part.
yes, so the Ventures. That's actually really great that you bring that up. So I think it may have been 20. Let's say 2019.
Hmm.
Um, just some itch came up that I had to scratch about like listening to surf rock. I think what happened was sometimes I'll go like full circle on bands or like a genre sort of where I'll maybe either start at the like peak of its evolution where we are right now with it or at like the beginning of it and then move on throughout the catalog and it kind of just comes into a full circle.
Hmm.
Um so for like something like the Ventures or something like surf rock, like the classic surf rock, like Dick Dale, Link Ray. I'm trying to remember who else. I mean, besides the Ventures, whoever else within that genre. I think what
Hmm.
happened was I started with bands, let's say like Real Estate, where some of I would say their first like two albums are just they're pretty much surf albums, but because we're now in 2010s that they were labeled as like indie, and
Yeah.
I dig that sound. Real Estate's such a cool band. There's so many others within that genre, but I'm blanking. But I think what happened was I started with them. I listened to them really, really hard in like 2018, and
Yeah.
then I started getting like further and further like down the line of like the derivation of it, where
Uh-huh.
I kind of got to like the beginning of it, and I started listening to surf rock, and that was one of the considerations when we first started writing was like I really like surf rock, and I can't take credit. I don't know if I got Marcelo into surf rock per se, but he's been
Hmm.
listening to it a lot more.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I was just like, I dig this. I like this a lot. I think the guitar tones in there are so sick and so iconic. Like surf rock, most of these bands didn't actually surf. Somebody, I think, along the way, I think this may have been, and this is me completely hypothesizing, probably during the time when like movies started around, and I think there was a lot of attention around like Hawaii and like
Hmm.
vacationing became like more of a thing now that planes actually flew more than like 100 miles,
Right, right.
and I think people started discovering a lot more about Hawaii, and then they were making movies about this paradise. And um, my theory on it is that like I don't know, somebody along the way was just making music that kind of vibed with like that, like the surfing sort of idealistic kind of lifestyle,
Hmm.
and those paired really well together. I don't think there's another music genre that is that associated with like a activity. I guess maybe like skate punk, but like
Sure.
surf rock, when you hear surf rock, the only thing you think about is surfing. There's like literally nothing else you think about. So it's just such an impressive genre.
Yeah, like the second you hear someone like just go do 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 do, and it's like really clean and reverb soaked, you just instantly picture somebody hanging 10. Like absolutely. Same way I guess like maybe some kids like nowadays will like listen to pop punk and then think of like early 2000s teen movies. From back in the day, all stuff that would get you completely canceled 100 times over now. But
yeah,
no, but to your point, and the other thing I always think of when I think of surf rock is like the bands that played that music were all wearing like sweater vests. Like they were all from California, but they were all dressed like wearing sweaters, except for like Elvis, because I feel like Elvis, they just took Elvis to a beach and with a camera and was like, okay, we'll figure out a story for like a couple of years there. But yeah, that sound is instantly like connected to that scene entirely. I always thought like, and also like really impressive like musicianship. Like I know that was like the cool teen music of the era, but that is very cool lead guitar playing of the time before we got into like the 80s shredding days. Like Wipeout is a shredder of a song. Dick Dale was a shredder of a guitarist.
I feel like people from that era don't get enough credit. It's just playing so fast and so accurately, and you had to do it back then in like one take.
Yeah, because it was all on tape and it was all clean, so there's nothing to cover up your mistakes. You have to do it right all the way through.
And they're like, we'll use like a little bit of distortion, but it's not enough to like cover up, if you miss a note or something. It's very impressive. I'd implore anybody to like. There's a lot of great. As I've dug through this discography of surf rock, there are a lot of great playlists out there, and if you just put it on, if you're into the type of music, because you got to be ready for all the songs to have a very similar sound. But if you're into that sort of thing, you'll find that there's just these very impressive arrangements of music and very impressive musicians included within that. That was one of the things I think that also just kind of kept me listening to that. Is it's so cool. It makes you feel badass.
Oh no, totally. It's like the absolute cool kid sound of an era, because cool transcends. So is that kind of what the genesis of Suburban Surf Club was, to kind of make a sort of like emo, intricately like played guitar rock with like an emo sheen?
So I got to give credit to the guys in the band, because originally this started off as just me. Long story short, because I've told this story a lot, but essentially what happened was I was in, if you remember Modern Fictions, in the city, and so we had booked some studio time, and there's a little bit of a miscommunication, because I think it's a place called The Bunker Studio in New York City. I think it's in Brooklyn. But there's Bunker Recordings, which is up in the Catskills, so very far away. But it's close to like where I grew up, so I had like a home base that I could go to record. But I ended up booking studio time up the one in the Catskills. Shout out to Mike Dwyer up there, and not the one down in the city. And then Modern Fictions ended up dissolving anyway, so I had time booked at the studio. I had a deposit down. Luckily, like the year before that, I had just written some indie esque demos, and not really much of a plan to use them. But that was kind of the genesis of it. Was I had these demos, I had studio time booked, and I was kind of writing sort of surf pop punk songs. But then as like this year, when we were writing Something Higher, Marcelo was now a part of the band. Dan was now a part of the band. And so they both contributed in their own way. And Marcelo also, pretty much was one of the sole writers of, some of the musical compositions on there. And I just kind of like threw some lyrics on there in a few tidbits. But so it's more of like a it's this one, Something Higher, is more of a collaborative release, I'd say. And
Hmm.
Marcelo comes from he loves, Midwest emo, and um he's, been listening to, I'd say, like pop punk and stuff a lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
So and Dan's coming in with, these a lot of classic rock influences, a lot of prog rock, and so those are two things I'm not super familiar with, like, emo, Midwest emo, and prog rock and stuff. And so we all came in with our own ideas, and it was a very collaborative EP. So I think that's why this one sounds it's still Suburban Surf Club, but it sounds a little bit different from our first release, which was Join the Club.
Yeah, because now you have like a full lineup that you can get input from a lot of different sources, and this is something I love about the collaborative process, and it's something I've gotten a lot better at as I've gotten older, because you can write a song and you have certain sounds that you hear in your head, like melodies, the way the bass is played, like maybe parts drop in and out, and then someone else can hear it and it'll go through their filter, like especially like some of these influences like that Midwest emo prog rock filter, because there's tons of like cool wheedlies in Midwest emo, and tons of like really intricate like different song structures in prog rock. So like combining all this together, it's like a really interesting combination of sounds, which filters into being something really unique.
Yeah, and those are things like the way Marcelo writes is different from the way I write. So when we come together, which is always a luxury because we don't live in the same area. I live in the city down here, and they live in Connecticut, but they're about like 45 minutes to an hour away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always really nice when we do get together, and that's how we wrote this EP. Was we had our ideas, we came together, we shared the demos ahead of time, so everybody did their homework, which is always nice in the band, and then
Yeah.
just kind of jammed out these songs, and we do like literally like 12-hour days of just jamming these out. I take a train out from the city at like 7 a.m. It was really like laborious process. At 7 a.m. I'd finally get to Shelton, Connecticut in like 2.5 hours, and then we'd just practice from like 10 a.m. to like 7 p.m. So it was a very long day. But I got to give it to the guys. Even the recording process was, we kind of squeezed everything together, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of the quality was necessarily missed. I don't think we rushed anything, which is really nice. And I enjoy when a process is like that, where start to finish, it takes a little bit more time. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the guys had great input on these songs, and really happy with how they came out.
No, it's a really cool EP. And when I listened to it, because we're kind of in the same spheres on social, and I think we used to live near each other, which I'm not going to say where on the recording. But I saw this come up. I was like, I got to listen to that, and I really enjoyed it. And then the other thing I thought was, this is like really a really different style and sound for him. I think he's really stretching himself, because the last time I think we might have seen each other in person is when we were playing at Sovern together with Goalkeeper in our old bands. I was still in Bright Ugly, and you were in what makes sense. So, and you don't have to go into too deep a detail. I'm just curious how this transition worked. What happened there exactly? Is What Makes Sense still active, or like on hiatus, completely done? What's the status there?
Yeah, they're still doing it. We're actually still good friends. I see the guys every now and then when I go back home. But yeah, so funny enough, Marcelo's actually still drumming with them. It was just I had to kind of restructure some things in life. Like life got a lot busier. I got promoted at work. It was a little bit more difficult to like make the trips up to
Right.
Poughkeepsie, and then we'd do like tours on the weekends. So now being the sole booker of Suburban Surf Club, like I have a little bit more control over my schedule. But yeah, I wish the guys good luck. There's no animosity there. They released an EP after I left, which I was playing on, and it was a really kick-ass EP. Golden Age. Would highly recommend checking it out. But yeah, so just kind of transitioned into Suburban Surf Club after, I wrote those songs and I wanted to play some shows, and we're building it up.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel the same way. Well, I'm glad that there's a good story there, and it's not one of those like kind of endings that can happen sometimes. Well, and to your point, it's very cool to see you like again, like very just like step by step build this thing, because I feel like very uniquely, because I don't think I was in a band when we first talked, and now I feel like I'm very much have some understanding of that journey that you're on right now. Like a couple of songs, post about it every single day for a couple months.
Yeah.
A couple more songs, post about it every single day.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like an old man now because, when TikTok struck while the iron was hot, in like 2020, I feel like when the largest adoption of that app sort of started. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that like our manager told us at the time was like, get on TikTok. We were like, all right. So we posting. That was like how how I grew the band back then. So now I'm kind of trying to apply that same thing. But yeah, it's just like it's changed now. There's a lot more videos being posted on it. So you have to kind of fight for your spot, like in the algorithm on social media and on everything too, even, Instagram Reels. And so getting back into like that digital marketing, space again and trying to hit it hard without being like annoying is it's a very fine line to walk. And, I'd implore any band or anybody really who has, anything to share online, just keep posting. Like if people, don't like it, they'll just scroll past the post. That's it. That's the worst thing that can happen, especially if you're a band too. You got to be shameless about promoting, and that's something I'm trying to get like a little bit better about, is being like, who cares if I post about the music video 5, 6, even 100 times? Like I'm just trying to share it. And so I'm getting back into like that social media game, and that was originally funny enough, not to like go too into the weeds, but essentially I had a video. This was before we released anything for Suburban Surf Club, but it was like hardcore moshing to Steely Dan, and the video blew up. It's at like 1.5 million views or something now.
Oh wow.
That was where like most of our followers came from on social media.
And
we didn't even have any music out, and I was like, shit, should we just like release it now?
Right. Or that's kind of that's wow, what a position to be in, because you're sort of like, well, if people are seeing this, I want to have something for them to go to. Yes, I very much, and I know that this is stuff that's very interesting to me as well, as like the marketing side of this, and because people got to hear all of these great songs. There's so much great stuff out there. Like when I see people talk about how what happened to bands, we're all still here. You just gotta find us.
We are clawing our way through the mud right now.
Yeah, we are. Well, we are vital components of the underground NYC scene. That's how I spin it.
Yeah.
Well, what I do, and I'd love to hear what you think. Well, what I do is, especially if I get like a very silly idea, like I did some like joke Oasis video a couple weeks ago because it was a thought that made me laugh on the way to band practice. But the other thing I've started using is I got the pro version of that video editing app, CapCut.
CapCut.
And that makes it really easy to find some goofy meme or template, put the single artwork in the back, and then put the hook of the song on, and just post that a couple times a day. I could put like Ray Gunn breakdancing to our song, put a cat vibing to our song. I did Skip Lag's Brat around the time that became
I saw that.
A thing. Oh, good. See, is
congratulations on Rhode Island. I was actually listening to it this morning after the gym. But yeah.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you saying that.
Rhode Island wastes my time.
Pat's gonna love that. My lead
you should
singer
sing it like that. Yeah, you should try that.
Yeah, do the Tom DeLonge Southern California like swallow the vowel kind of.
Yeah, I was like, you're
kind of
so close. You could just twist it and get it.
Well, what I really need to do, and I don't know if you listened to the deluxe edition of Blink's newest album, One More Time. They have that song All in My Head, and you can definitely hear Tom saying "yed" in a couple of the choruses. So they're leaning into it.
They're aware.
So all I got to do is this, and see, this could be a funny video of me trying to write a song where head is like in my head is part of the chorus, so I can get that "yed" in there.
Yeah. Be like you were like writing down and like you're trying to write in my head and it just always defaults to Y and you're like shit and like throwing the paper out, doing it again. You're like, I can't control my hand right now.
Okay, I'm all right. I'm gonna steal that.
Idea. Take it.
I'm gonna steal that idea. So you got this T-shirt idea, and then I've got this video idea. So this is already a productive podcast, dude.
Yeah. It's an exchange.
Exactly. Well, also, I'd love to ask you a little bit as when it comes to like being a New York City band and trying to set up shows. Like, what do you have like something? Do you have like a process for that? Are you like trying to find promoters, or are you just trying to find bands and then approach venues that are gonna be reasonable to work with? What is kind of like your process for DIY show booking?
New York City is its own beast.
Yeah.
It's different than, I mean, I haven't played, I won't say that I've like played everywhere in the country. I've played places in the Northeast up, all the way up to like Maine and stuff. And it's different than any other place because most places you could probably contact like a local booker or some, promoter.
Yeah.
And they'll like help kind of put together a concert. But New York City, for whatever reason, it's actually best to email the venues. And so like I don't have a booking company or anything, but I've booked most of our shows, for the past year, either here or just outside the city or maybe in Connecticut and stuff. And so what I've learned is New York City, if you are going to book the show, find some bands first of all. It makes it a damn lot easier to, book a show and bring that to whoever's handling the booking at the venue.
Yeah.
Contact the venue, email them with all the details. Sometimes it's good to overestimate how many people will come because venues are asking for like 100 people and I'm like that's just not gonna happen. They like want each band to bring 100 people out, which, you got to be realistic about it, but I get it. We're all trying to make money and, I'm sure venues are as well, but, you tell them how many people are coming and then, like you tell them I have, X amount of bands who are already, confirmed good for that date. Let us know what's up. So that's kind of how I go about the process is just, really how like any kind of, what would I say, like band guru online would like tell you to do, like you got to contact the venues, give them all this information, your social, how many bands are playing, how many people you think you're gonna bring out, and then book the show. Like that's kind of how it's happened. Is I've just emailed like venues. I'd say there's really only a few like actual booking companies that like you could potentially reach out to in the city that would book shows, but most of the time, if you just email a venue, that's how it goes. And so that's how I've booked. I think we've done maybe three or four shows in the city. I think 3 shows, and so a lot of that was just contacting the venues, making sure I got a good lineup. Luckily I have a pretty good network here in the city of great bands to reach out to, and that usually makes life a lot easier too, especially when if I have to like put money down on the venue, which luckily isn't always a thing in New York City, but if you're booking the space, sometimes that's part of the deal. And they've helped me. Like my goal, when I put shows together is one, make sure it's going to be a good show, so all the bands fit together. All the bands are, if I don't necessarily know them directly, I know of them, and I know they're going to be good for having a good performance, being respectful, being cool with everybody, and bringing people out. And then kind of priority 2 is just making sure that all the bands get paid.
Yeah.
Because we are, we shouldn't be doing anything for free anymore. Like we're
No, I
we're not
agree.
making money on streaming, and so if we're providing a service, the venue's making hundreds of dollars that night. It's only fair that bands get paid. So I always make sure that I'm watching out for the bands that are playing. And that's been a learning process. I've had shows where I've only been able to give out like $20 to both my band and other bands too. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, like how can we make sure that doesn't happen so that next time everybody's getting like $100 at least, for playing. And even like that could go to if bands are traveling, even from like Westchester or from Connecticut or something.
Yeah.
Gas is expensive. I want to make sure they at least cover that, and then make a little bit of money too to put towards whatever band fund or whatever expenses bands have.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like just making sure that we're at least if we're netting out, if like the proceeds from like merch or tickets or like a little bit of streaming is at least making like so you're not losing money doing the band, then that's a great initial goal that's like a great step one to be in, I think personally.
And I'd also implore any artists, anybody who's doing DIY stuff, if you don't have a website that's already kind of doing the accounting for you, just create an Excel sheet. Super easy. This has been super helpful in us being able to make financial decisions for the band. Is going, how much money do we have in like our band account, which is essentially just like my bank account, but I'm keeping track of in an Excel sheet what's coming in, merch sales, if we're making any money off of shows, what's going out, if we're buying merch, if we're if my guys are coming into the city to play with me and they have to pay for parking, like I'll make sure I give them money for parking and things like that. It helps so much when you have to have those financial conversations, is when you're like, all right, how much money do we have? Do we even need to like all contribute? And I'll be like, no, we have enough to like buy merch. I'll just take it out of my checking or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like just, and the underlying point I think you're making with that I think is very important, and I think is great for useful for any kind of creative project, is communication. Like just having the conversation so that you can at least all be on the same page. That's super important as well.
I couldn't agree more. And being a 3-piece, that's really easy.
No, I know what you mean. Like Bright Ugly was 3-piece. Skip Leg is 4, but still like
what a nightmare.
Well, I have no idea how bands like
you guys trying to be like Slipknot? That's way too many people.
Well, it totally makes me understand why Ed Sheeran like just is playing arenas by himself and using the looper pedal. That makes total sense to me. Or I've got my friend in Liverpool. His name's Barry Briarcliff. He's a great singer songwriter. So like he has original stuff and then he plays in the pubs on Matthew Street, and he does the looper. He has an octave pedal, so he loops the bass line, loops the drum beat, hitting the guitar, and he's a very compelling live performer.
That's
just
awesome.
just by himself.
Very cool name too.
Oh yeah, he's great. I love that dude. I love that dude so much. Barry, if you're listening, I love you, buddy. Well, let me also ask you this, because like I know we're asking lots of business decisions, but I would love to also talk about the creative side of this. So, talking about the new EP, so it's more collaborative writing process. But is there a particular song that you remember coming up with the initial idea for the EP, and then did it really stay the same, or did it change drastically from the original idea?
Yeah. Let me see. I will use If You Ain't First as an example.
Okay.
So that was a song that we had written. There's a few songs on the EP, I think, Nothing After 1981, and actually, yeah, and then also If You Ain't First. Those are two songs we've had and have been playing live since we released our first EP or collection of songs in last year in June. And over time, like it's evolved a little bit, but it didn't really evolve, or it didn't evolve to the degree that it did when we all met last fall and earlier in the year to write the EP.
Mm-hmm.
So the first section of that song is pretty much stayed untouched since then. But it always been kind of like a very mellow, like I have a friend who compares it to like The Cure almost, which is kind of funny because I don't really listen to The Cure, but I was like I can kind of hear it. And then there's that ending part where we just go into like the I think it's like the climb down kind of part of it, and like it goes into like a breakdown. We didn't have that part up until maybe like of January last year, and
Oh, wow.
Marcelo added that, and he had like, because the song was like 2 minutes long, we were like we could probably add a little bit more, and so we did, and we added that part, and I think that part kind of made that song like, I wouldn't maybe not favorite of the EP, but second favorite.
Yeah.
It's just it's too weird, like different things happening, and there's just kind of like a hard cut in it, and I really enjoy that because it's surprising. If you're listening to it the first time, you're like, I did not see that shit coming.
Yeah, that's like a very like classic proggy kind of move, is to have very different styles within the same song. Or what I would also say is like it's a Parasite switch. Like if you ever saw the movie Parasite, like you think it's one kind of movie and then it takes a real twist down the staircase.
Yeah, we want to keep people on their toes, and so I hope that's at least one of the songs that accomplished that.
Awesome. And have you guys played a bunch like outside of the city, like regionally? I know you've got some roots in upstate from the last time we chatted. Or have you ever like played Jersey or like any like house shows, stuff like that?
Jersey's been tough. We've been trying to book Jersey for a while, so if anybody from Jersey's listening,
Interesting.
I did like a solo show up in Maine in January. That was a lot of fun. Shout out to my friends in Breton up there. We've done Connecticut a few times just because we have some roots there with Marcelo and Dan in Connecticut, so it's my favorite state to play. It's the New Haven music scene is just excellent, and there's so many great bands coming out of there, and so we've played around New Haven a few times. We've let me see where else. We played Boston. Boston was good. I definitely need to re-strategize to get a little bit bigger of a show next time we go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a lot of like, New England outside of that. The hope is that for in the spring of 2025, we're going to try to get a tour together, which I'm starting to work on this fall to get down the coast. And so hoping to, kind of make our way down to around North Carolina, South Carolina. But it'd be my first time going that far down, and I know I'd have a lot to learn, and I'm sure there's going to be some mistakes along the way, but that's really what I'm looking forward to, is playing the southern states.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, dude, I know Baltimore is great for this kind of scene. Metro Gallery, like I know a bunch of bands have played that place in Baltimore City. I haven't talked to this guy in a while, but this band Sleeve are based in Richmond, Virginia, and they say Richmond has a great scene. I know a couple of people from there. That might be worth checking out as well, if to do like a DC area kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely planning on Virginia. That's just one area I know. Like, I only know like House and Home from there, but like I don't know them personally, and we're too small to play with them at the moment.
Right.
But like I'm like that's kind of what excites me, is I don't know anything about the area. So I was like, it's going to be a really fun process over the next few months. Researching bands, reaching out to them, just discovering new music too, and if they're bands that I like, really enjoy, they're going to be on the show.
Yeah.
And hopefully it won't just be me booking the shows. It'd be kind of a tough sell, being like, hey, we're from New York City, I'm putting together a show at your venue. I'm not sure how well that'll pass along, so hopefully I can get in contact with some cool promoters and they can point me in the right direction. But like when we played Boston, for example, I had a lot of help in, contacting people and if they weren't available for that date, I'd ask for references, and most bands were able to provide me like another 5 bands to reach out to. So
Cool.
the DIY music scene, it's alive and well, and I'm sure the South is just like that. I've heard a lot of great things about a lot of the southeastern kind of music culture, and how well everything's doing down there. So I'm confident we can get something together.
Oh, absolutely. One of my favorite quotes I think I've heard the comedian Eugene Merman say is that there's an East Village everywhere. So there's always like a pocket for like cool alternative comedy. I feel similarly, there will always be a pocket, a need for DIY, for DIY music, especially like DIY, like punk, and alternative music, because there's always going to be people who need to create something, and there's always going to be people who want to go and do something and have it be theirs, like their kind of like special thing. And
you don't even need a venue for punk. Like, you don't. I just saw a video of a band playing in a baseball diamond the other night. Like,
oh, sick.
Like, it could be anywhere, which I think is what's so incredible about it. So that's why I know, like, there's certain parts of this country, I think, like Lexington, Kentucky, like the Bay Area of San Francisco, just flourishing on all these shows, these house shows, these skate park shows.
Yeah.
It's so cool that there's availability for that in this country, that people can get whether or not there's a permit. I don't give a shit about that, but like
Right.
that you can sometimes get a permit and do these things, and people will show up, and in masses too. Like, it's not just, there was this one skate park show. They had some big bands there, like White Reaper was playing, I think, but like this show at Lexington, they filled out an entire skate park. So I think DIY is what's helping, grow this, because I've said it before too, that if you're a young band in your like 20s and you're, just starting jobs, like, you don't have a few $100s to put down on a venue to like book the room.
Yeah.
So one, shout out to the venues that don't ask for any money to book it. The smaller venues, you know who we are. Thank you so much. And then two, having the availability to be like, well, we don't have money to put down on a venue, but we can go play a house show, or we can play outside somewhere. I think that's really cool. And so spaces of the country that allow for that type of culture are really important.
Absolutely. I think that there is a direct correlation to it's almost like those like programs that are designed to like keep kids like off the streets, or like I feel like very similarly that DIY culture is keeping a lot of people like sane, sober, and on a positive track in their lives. I really, really do believe that. And so it's stuff like this, like whenever they start talking about like defunding the arts, that gets me as like, no, then they're going to get into politics and start like doing like having terrible ideas for the rest of us. Like, I genuinely believe in the health and mental healing that comes from just making art, even if it doesn't become a full-time job, even if it's just like something that you just do and it enriches your life. I feel like there is infinite value that is hard to measure in just putting things on, creating things, and the skills you learn by doing that.
Yeah, a sign of a healthy society is a good arts community. And
yes.
And people think, oh, well, if it doesn't make money, then it's not like worth it. Well, that's not a good way to think about things.
No.
It's art is as mental as it is a physical thing, and so it's super, super important.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great note to end this on. So, dude, it's been a pleasure chatting with you again. I know it has been far too long, so I apologize for the length of time it took you to me to reach out for us to chat again. But I feel like this won't be the only time. So I want to make sure people can find you here. So Suburban Surf Club's newest EP, Something Higher's out now. Where can people find the band if they want to listen to more?
Pretty much any streaming service. We are working on getting that album onto Bandcamp, if that's what listeners use. But beyond that, we're on everything from Spotify, Apple Music. I've been told Deezer. I think even Tidal. So it's a wide variety of things. Pretty much any streaming service you can find us on, just under Suburban Surf Club. The new EP is Something Higher. But yeah, it's really easy to find us in the digital streaming age.
Excellent. Well, dude, thank you again for doing this. This was a delight as always, and I look forward to. We're gonna have to play a show together soon, so let's maybe set that up.
I know we didn't even talk about that. We are 100% going to do that.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to do that, and thank you again for coming back on the show, Aaron. I really appreciate it.
Of course, listen to Skip Lag.
Okay, folks, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. Aaron is too kind with his praise of my band's music, and I cannot tell you folks enough how much I love that dude and how much I enjoyed getting to catch up with him. We talked a bit after we finished recording as well. Aaron is just a really solid guy, and his band Suburban Surf Club's new EP, Something Higher, is incredible. It is unique. It is original, and I really enjoy it. So listen to it everywhere that you stream your music. And you can listen to Skip Lag's first single, Rhode Island. It is available now also everywhere that you stream your music. And if you want to check out us live, if you're in the New York City area, October 18th at 8 p.m., we will be playing Connolly's Club 45, right in the heart of Manhattan, right a couple blocks away from Times Square. Tickets links are in the description if you want to come see some live pop punk music and meet some more cool pop punk friends. I would very much love to see you folks there. So thank you again so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and know a friend who would be interested in it as well, you can send them to awesomedisaster.com. That has links to everything related to me and what I can and what I do. We are on Apple and Spotify. If you want to give us a rating or a review, that would help us please the algorithm and thus help more cool people like yourself find the show as well. If you want to go a little bit further in support, you can check out our Patreon, which is patreon.com/awesomedisaster. You can also follow me on Instagram, willcarry23, and you can follow Skip Lag NYC on Instagram as well. Free things to help independent creators. And I would be tremendously appreciative because, again, it is all about finding out how to please the computers when it comes to making things in 2024. So thank you all again so much for being here. And again, shout out to Josh for listening. I very much appreciate your support, Josh. And thank you for being a fan of the show. And I will see you folks next time between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everybody, and register to vote.